We are finishing up our series called Unity as we have been walking through the book of Ephesians. We spent the month of January kind of talking about why it's important to read the Bible and giving you some tools to help you feel better about your time in the Bible and feel that you are getting more out of it, how to make your time in the Bible more effective. And so then we decided to put that to use throughout the month of February as we spend time in the book of Ephesians, giving you a chance to read on your own, take notes, and come prepared to talk about those kinds of things and really work through it. And so we are wrapping up in the book of Ephesians after Mary killed it last week, talking about chapters 3 and 4. This week we are wrapping up with chapters 5 and 6. So, have you ever noticed that you might have friends who are different around different people and they start to sound like the people that they are around? Or you might do this yourself where you catch yourself like, not even whether with it being like bad language, but just in the way you speak and like the words you use, it might change depending on what friend group you're with or where you're at, that you change how you speak or how you act. And that is true for a lot of people. And so Paul starts off in this chapter 5 of Ephesians, kind of just laying out what it means to represent Jesus and how to walk out the faith and walk out the life that you are called to live. Starting in Ephesians chapter 5, those first two verses, verses 1 and 2, it says, "Follow God's example, therefore, as dearly loved children, and walk in the way of love, just as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us as a fragrant offering and sacrifice to God." So Paul's first instruction or his first step of advice is just to follow God's example. Live out the way that Jesus lived out his life. Just as Christ walked a path of love, just as he did everything in love, so should you. And Mary talked about that a little bit last week, about how everything should come from this place of established love. That whatever you do, whether it's trying to encourage someone or hold them accountable and like whatever, call out something that they might be doing wrong or something that they should have done that they didn't do, like when your relationship is founded in a place of love and you can come from that place, then it will be more effective. And so what Paul is saying is that should be how you carry out every interaction, and every relationship that you have should come from this place of love. Because he goes on to say in chapters 3 through 7, it says, "But among you there must not be even a hint of sexual immorality or of any kind of impurity or of greed, because these are improper for God's holy people. Nor should there be obscenity, foolish talk, or coarse joking, which are out of place, but rather thanksgiving. For of this you can be sure, no immoral, impure, or greedy person, such a person is an idolater, has any inheritance in the kingdom of Christ and of God. Let no one deceive you with empty words, for because of such things God's wrath comes on those who are disobedient. Therefore, do not be partners with him." And that might sound harsh, but what Paul is trying to say is that you are who you hang out with. That no matter how much you try and prevent it or fight it or say it's not going to happen, if you surround yourself with nothing but people who are making the wrong choices or doing the wrong thing, you are going to be right there with them. Paul is saying that there cannot be, he says, do not be partners with them. Do not give them that kind of access to your life. What he's not saying is to cut them out completely. I don't think it means that we shouldn't associate with them at all. I mean, look at Jesus. He just said 2 verses before that to follow God's example and to live the life that Jesus lived. And then if you read through the Gospels, you're going to see countless stories of Jesus spending time around sinners and around people that everyone else said, like, we don't talk to them because they suck. Like, he hung out with tax collectors and prostitutes and all kinds of people that everybody else said, like, those are the worst people, and that's who Jesus spent time with. Paul's not saying to cut them out and to not be around them. What he's saying is to not make them your inner circle. Don't make them the people that you trust with your life and that you trust to pour into your life or to speak into your life and to say, here's what you should do this, follow this example. Like, those are not the people that you want to trust with your soul and with your accountability. What Paul is saying is that usually the first step away from God is a step towards the wrong people. So when I was in college, I took a geography class, geology, rocks, not maps, rocks. But we talked all about rocks and stuff like that, and we had to do this field trip where we went for a weekend into Kentucky and went to Mammoth Cave, which is like the longest cave system in America, maybe in North America, I'm not sure. But it's super long, and we did this whole tour where we went through, and it was like crazy to be underground and see these like caverns that were bigger than like the Colosseum, like these huge places that we're walking. Like, this is underground, it's insane. But one of the parts that we did, they had us come into this room, and they had all these benches lined up, and they had us sit down. And obviously, we're all the way underground, so there's no real light. There's only like electricity. There's lights that they have running through with light bulbs. And so they had us sit in these benches, and they said, all right, check this out. And they turned off the lights. And I have never experienced that level of dark before in my life. Like, it was a dark that was so like intense that I felt it like on my eyes, like pressing on my eye. It was crazy. But then they lit up a tiny little light, and it looked like it was like maybe 100 feet away. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, we see the light now, whatever. And then they turn on all of the lights, and we see this person holding up a lighter like a mile down this pathway. That it was so dark that even this tiny little pinprick of a little flame on a lighter looked like it was so close to us because of how dark it was, even though it was like almost a mile away. Paul calls us to be a similar light in a dark space. In Ephesians chapter 5, verses 8 through 14, he says, "For you were once darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. Live as children of light, for the fruit of light consists in all goodness, righteousness, and truth. And find out what pleases the Lord. Have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. It is shameful even to mention what the disobedient do in secret. But everything exposed by the light becomes visible, and everything that is illuminated becomes a light. This is why it is said, 'Wake up, sleeper, rise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you.'" See, when light is let in the darkest places of your life, you can then begin to be healed and recover from the darkness, and you can see what needs to be taken care of. See, the best way to beat sin is not to do it alone, but to illuminate it. This is everything exposed by the light becomes visible. And I'm going to bring us back to our mission statement or our values or vision or whatever we want to call it for C3 Youth. It's painted on the wall over there before Michael had to go and paint over it. But it's 6 words. Love God, love people. What are the last 2? Be real. Be real. And that means be real with everything in your life. Whatever it is that you struggle with, whatever mistakes you make, the sins that you feel ashamed of, that you don't want people to know, you are not going to be able to beat it alone. It says, have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. Expose those things in your life so that the people that you trust, the ones that you have given accountability in your life, your small group and your leaders, like expose that to them so that they can speak life into you. And understand, remember what Paul talked about 2 chapters before, that these interactions should be coming from a place of established love. So, when you are exposing the stuff in your life, when you are bringing forward all of the sin and all the crap that you deal with and all the things that you do and the mistakes that you make, you should feel comfortable knowing that the person that you're bringing it to, if you have done right and you have established the right kind of relationships in your life, it's coming from a foundation of love. So you shouldn't come into that feeling judged or feeling like they're going to be angry with you or they're going to hate you or they're going to judge you, because you have built up the correct relationships and the right relationships in your life established in love so that you are free to do that. The bottom line is, where there is light, there cannot be dark. So fill your life with light. Expose the things in your life so that the darkness can't take hold, can't take root in you. So after my wife and I got married, we went to Chicago for like a short honeymoon, and then 6 months later, we took the traditional like trip for a honeymoon, and we went on a cruise to the Bahamas. And we chose to delay it a few months and go in January because we got married in July, and we were like, we don't want to leave Indiana when it's actually warm to go somewhere warm. Like, we'd rather take a cruise in January, get away from the cold for a little bit, and go on this cruise and take advantage of it then and be warm. And so we pushed it off until January. The problem is the Bahamas, in the winter in America, the Bahamas, it's winter there too. Granted, it's a tropical place, but it's still winter there, and so it was not the warmest. It was like when the boat was moving, when we're on the cruise ship out on the deck and it's moving, it was like in the 50s. And so I was not prepared. I did not pack accordingly because I'm like, woo, tropical vacation, going to the Bahamas. I'm bringing nothing but shorts and tank tops. And I'm walking around on the cruise ship like, I'm going to go back to the room because I'm freezing cold. And even when we'd get to the tropical islands and we'd be out on the beach, and I'm still like, when this breeze blows, this is not pleasant. When the breeze isn't blowing and the sun is out, it's nice. But then the breeze goes and I want to go home. So I was not packed accordingly. I didn't bring what I needed for what I was going to be in. And that's what Paul gets into as we get into Ephesians chapter 6. What Paul wants us to understand is that it's time for war, and he wants us to be prepared. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 10 through 13, it says, "Finally, be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Therefore, put on the full armor of God so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground, and after you have done everything, to stand." See, what he's trying to tell us is that we are in the middle of a fight, and we need to be prepared for it. He says we are in war against the rulers of the world, of the authorities, of the powers of darkness in the spiritual realm. There are so many things in this world that are going to come against you as a follower of Jesus. The way the world works does not cater to Christians. Society, the way they use advertisements, the way the world looks at a lot of things that Christians hold sacred and call holy, the world looks at it and says it's not that big a deal. There are a lot of things in this world that are going to come against you, and Paul says you need to be prepared. So we need to realize that we have a need for strength because the enemy is powerful. But we also need to realize that not only is the enemy powerful, but we are kind of weak. We are broken human beings that all have weakness. We all have places where we struggle. It's probably not the same as the person sitting next to you. Like you all have something in your life, an area where you struggle, where you have a difficult time. That the things we're facing are powerful and that we are weak, but the last thing that we need to understand is that we have a power to rely on that's bigger and badder than anything that we're facing. The other thing that we need to understand in what Paul is writing is that he's not writing this letter to you, and he's not writing it to one singular person in the church in Ephesus. He's writing it to all of them. He's saying everybody needs to put on the full armor of God. See, when one person puts on the gear and gets ready to fight, and they stand in the ring, they stand by themselves. But when multiple people all put on armor, they all get ready to fight, what do we call that? An army. That we are individual units in God's army fighting God's battle. And see what I like about what we've kind of talked about, we've been using these skills to learn how to spend time in the Bible and read Scripture. And one thing that is cool is that the more comfortable you get in that, the more time you spend in the Word, the more you're able to pull from other places in the Bible to support what you are reading. You see, we're here in the book of Ephesians. We've been reading through it, and that's all we've really been looking at is Ephesians. But if we look at the book of Ecclesiastes, all the way back in the Old Testament, we read this little section here that supports what we're reading here, that it says that Paul is writing for unity. He calls, throughout the book of Ephesians, he calls us to unity, right? That's why the series is called Unity. We've seen it come up in all of these chapters that we've read. He's calling the church to be united. And then here in Ephesians 6, he's calling us to armor up and get ready to fight. He's calling us to be an army together. And we look back at the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 4, verses 9 through 12. It says, 2 people are better off than one, for they can help each other succeed. If one person falls, the other can reach out and help them up. But someone who falls alone is in real trouble. Likewise, 2 people lying close together can keep each other warm. But how can one be warm alone? A person standing alone can be attacked and defeated, but 2 can stand back to back and conquer. And 3 are even better, for a triple braided cord is not easily broken. See, the book of Ecclesiastes, all the way back in the Old Testament, is saying we need to have people by our side for this fight that we are walking into. It says 2 people are better off than one, because if one falls down, the other can help him back up. That if they stand back to back, they can protect each other. Xander, come up here really quick. That if we're surrounded, turn around, and we go back to back, who's coming at us that we can't watch each other's back? That I got this side, Xander, you got that side. Nobody's going to come at us. You spend all day in the gym. You post pictures on Instagram. We all know it. We're ready for the fight, okay? Nobody's coming at Xander. They've seen his Instagram. They know he's swole. And they're coming at us. I got this side. Xander's got that side. Nothing's coming at us. And if life throws something at us and we have to pivot, if I have to turn this way, Xander's still got my back. If I have to go back this way, Xander still got my back and I still got his. That we are a team together. We surround ourselves. Thanks, man. You can go sit down. That when we surround ourselves with people that we trust and we trust somebody to watch our back through the things that life throws at us, no matter what happens, no matter how we have to pivot, no matter how things twist and turn, they have our back. And the important thing is to put those people in your circle that might be a little bit different than you, because we all have blind spots. That's why you have somebody at your back who can watch your blind spot and you can watch theirs. That there might be something that, areas of their life that they're blind to, that they don't know, that they're messing up, that they are dropping the ball, and they see something in you, and you can stand back to back and you can call each other out and say, look at this, I'm fighting this off with you because you don't see it, but I'm calling it out for you. Paul ends chapter 6, verses 14 through 17. He says, "Stand firm then, with the belt of truth buckled around your waist, with the breastplate of righteousness in place, and with your feet fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace. In addition to all this, take up the shield of faith with which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one, and take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God." You have to be prepared for the fight. You have to suit up in the armor of God, and I'm not going to spend a ton of time talking about it right now because #ad starting next month, the month of March, our series is called Armor Up, which we are going to be looking throughout the month of March at this portion of Ephesians as we look at the armor of God and what that means, how we can put it to work in our lives. But we have to be prepared because there's a fight coming, and Paul is saying you need to clothe yourselves in these things: truth and righteousness and peace and faith and salvation, and taking the Spirit with you so that you are prepared to fight what's coming at you, with the reminder and with the knowledge that you are not fighting it alone, but with an army at your side and with God behind you. So I'm going to send you off to small groups here in a minute where you can spend that time pouring into each other and building up your army, the people in your life that you would trust with your weakness and trust with your blind spots, and say, we're going to do this together, we're going to fight together, and I trust you to watch my back. So let me pray, and then you guys can get off to small groups. God, thank you so much for this group and for their commitment to come be here to learn about you, learn about your word. God, I pray that the time that we spend together, whether it's acting goofy, playing games, or sitting together as we spend time in your word or in small group discussion, that every moment that we spend as a group, that you are present for, and that you are drawing us closer to one another and drawing us closer to you. God, I pray for this community, that they begin to see how their neighbors and the people in their groups care for them and want to lift each other up, hold each other accountable, make each other better followers of you, that they can protect each other from whatever life throws at them, that they can be prepared for the fight that's coming. God, I pray for this time that we spend together in small groups. I pray that you give each person in this room words to say that their group needs to hear. I pray you use all of us as your voice as we go off and spend time in discussion. Draw us closer to one another, draw us closer to you, and it's in your Son's name that we pray. Amen.